The most notorious unsolved mysteries in the U.S. explained. The disappearance of D.B. Cooper, 1971, Washington State. On Thanksgiving Eve, November 24th, 1971, a man who identified himself as Dan Cooper boarded Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305 from Portland, Oregon, to Seattle, Washington. He was composed, courteous, and holding a briefcase. On the flight, Cooper gave a flight attendant a note that read, "I have a bomb in my briefcase." When she sat down next to him, he quietly opened the case to show wires, red sticks, and a battery. He demanded $200,000 in cash and 4 parachutes, pledging to release the passengers only after the ransom had been paid. The money and parachutes were exchanged, and Cooper let everyone off the plane except the flight crew when the plane landed in Seattle. Finally, as the jet flew south toward Mexico City, Cooper did the impossible. He lowered the Boeing 727's rear stairs and parachuted into the freezing night, disappearing without a trace over densely forested Washington. The FBI initiated a huge investigation called Zodiac, interviewing thousands and searching miles of terrain. Yet, Cooper's real identity and whether he survived the jump still stand as one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in U.S. history. The Black Dahlia Murder, 1947, Los Angeles. It was the early morning of January 15th, 1947, when a young mother strolled through the Leimert Park area in Los Angeles to see an appalling image. The body of Elizabeth Short, an ambitious 22-year-old aspiring actress, whose nude body lay sprawled in a vacant lot, severed at the waist with surgical precision. Blood drained, bruises and cuts on the face. She was slashed with the now infamous Glasgow smile wounds, and posed mere feet from a public sidewalk. She'd come to Los Angeles from Medford, Massachusetts, chasing dreams of Hollywood stardom. The Los Angeles Police Department launched one of the largest investigations in the city's history, interviewing hundreds of individuals and pursuing over 150 suspects. And yet, no one has ever been charged. The Zodiac Killer, 1968 to 1969, California. The Zodiac was a serial killer who terrorized Northern California from December 1968 to October 1969. He killed at least 5 known victims in Benicia, Vallejo, Napa County, and San Francisco, though he asserted the real count was 37. The Zodiac taunted law enforcement and newspapers, taking handwritten letters and cryptic ciphers to editors and detectives through direct mail. Others came with chilling lines, such as, "I like killing people because it's so much fun." The case never yielded enough evidence to warrant an arrest, even though there were many suspects, like schoolteacher Arthur Lee Allen. His most infamous cipher, the 340 cipher, was finally cracked in 2020 by private code breakers, but it turned out to be more of a taunt rather than a confession. But the killer's real identity has been one of the greatest mysteries in the history of American crime. The disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa, 1975, Detroit. Jimmy Hoffa, who led the Teamsters Union, disappeared outside the Maucus Red Fox restaurant in Bloomfield Township, Michigan, on July 30th, 1975, waiting for 2 men he said he was meeting. Hoffa was a powerful man in American society, a labor boss, most notably in the trucking industry, and also a key figure with organized crime. When he disappeared that afternoon, his car was discovered parked at the restaurant, but Hoffa was gone. Various theories have been conjectured over the years, ranging from a mob hit ordered by rival union leaders to burial beneath the Giant Stadium in New Jersey to cremation at a Detroit funeral home. None of these theories has ever been proven. No matter how many years' worth of FBI research devoted to trying to figure out where Hoffa went, nobody found him, and his disappearance has become a symbol of corruption, power, and mystery in 20th century America. The Boy in the Box, 1957, Philadelphia. On February 25, 1957, a college student walking through a wooded part of Philadelphia's Fox Chase neighborhood found a cardboard box that had the body of a young boy inside it, wrapped in a blanket. He was 4 to 6 years old, with bruises from his injuries, malnutrition, and it appeared that he had just been bathed. Despite receiving national attention, no one came forward to identify him. For decades, the nameless child had simply been called America's unknown child. The police chased many leads, from foster homes to missing person reports, but no one provided an answer. The FBI would later identify him in 2022 using DNA as Joseph Augustus Zarelli, who was born in 1953. But who killed him and why are mysteries even today. Amelia Earhart's disappearance, 1937, Pacific Ocean. The American aviator Amelia Earhart and her navigator, Fred Noonan, vanished in a Lockheed Electra on July 2, 1937, trying to circumnavigate the globe. They were last spotted near Howland Island, a remote spot in the central Pacific Ocean. Though the U.S. Navy and Coast Guard had gone to the trouble of conducting what was then the largest air and sea search in history, none of the plane's crew or any part of it was ever found. Theories have circulated for years that Earhart had flown over the ocean, came ashore on Nikumaroro Island, or was captured by the Japanese during the height of Pacific hostilities. Nothing has been confirmed directly with certainty. Her disappearance remains an enigma of aviation history, and is one of the most baffling mysteries in U.S. history. Sodder Children's disappearance, Christmas Eve, 1945. On Christmas Eve, 1945, in Fayetteville, West Virginia, beneath the base of the Appalachian Mountains, the home of the Sodder family caught fire at about 1 a.m., which ignited one of America's great mysteries, the disappearance of Maurice Sodder, 14, Martha Sodder, 12, Louis Sodder, 9, Jenny Irene Sodder, 8, and Betty Sodder, 5. George, his wife Jenny, and 4 of their children survived the blaze. However, their 5 youngest children were never again seen, and no definitive remains were ever found. The fire was said to be caused by an electrical fault, but the family's telephone line had been cut, their ladder lost, and none of George's trucks started that night, all signs pointing toward this being a premeditated incident. Investigators discovered only small, loose pieces of bone in the wreckage, and a pathologist later concluded that they likely belonged to neither of the children. Decades later, the Sodders hung billboards, pursued leads nationwide, received letters that presented the tantalizing suggestion that the children were still alive, and never stopped seeking out information, keeping the faith that the children had been abducted rather than killed. But the trail faded away, and that case remained cold and haunted generations.